Hello and welcome to Women Empowerment Edition Impact for Change. The purpose for the podcast is to provide the space for women to share their stories in an inspiring way to help impact and inspire other women out there. Now, today's guest, ladies, she's an amazing human being. She's a coach, a podcaster, and entrepreneur. Her journey began with a deep seated passion for women empowerment, especially for women. Her desire is to create supportive and nurturing space for women. She's already done that. She's already doing it. I have known her personally, and just our relationship started recently. She is a true definition of inspiration, empowerment, and transformation. Please help me welcome the phenomenal coach, Jasmyn. Jasmyn, welcome to Women Empowerment Edition.
Thank you. And your words are too kind. I really appreciate it. You have me over here smiling from ear to ear. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for accepting to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. I love your platform. You came on mine, so it was only right to connect and do this again on your platform. So I'm excited. I'm nervous, but also excited.
I've known you. I've known you. You're so confident. You're so confident. And I like that confidence because I feel like, oh my gosh, she's so powerful and she's so confident.
Mm.
You make me nervous right now, but, but it's all right. So now, Jasmyn, for the listeners there, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, so my name is Jasmyn Camp. I am the founder of Jay's Intuitive Life Coaching and Empowered Healing. And I recently decided to shift gears from self-care and start really focusing more so on helping female entrepreneurs heal trauma so that they can be more successful in their businesses. So I'm revamping my services, my products, my courses, my coaching to gear more towards addressing the deep rooted traumas that caused us to create our businesses that we're holding on and we're too afraid to let go of. So that's a little bit about me. Personally, I'm a mom, of course. I have two wonderful boys, Aiden and Jaden. They're 7 and 9. I have a dog, I have a cat, and I love writing poetry. I love writing, I love journaling,
Wow.
blogging. Yeah. I sing in the shower and I love to cook.
Amazing. That's amazing. I don't think most of people gonna listen. They do sing in the shower, so that's and they like cooking and things.
Mhm.
So that's absolutely amazing. So I hear that you say you help women with trauma and all that. And what really drive you personally to start doing that and start becoming a coach and create your business to help women?
Um, well, when I originally started my business 3 years ago, I started in the trauma space. And if I'm going to be honest, I got scared. So I shifted gears and focused more so on self-care because one, I realized that with working with women who are dealing with trauma,
Mm,
it triggered my own experiences. And so I wasn't at the place in my own healing journey three
mm,
years ago to be able to take on somebody else's healing journey. So what got me into wanting to shift gears and really dive deep into trauma is my own experiences with trauma as a child. I've had, as one of my professional friends says, that I know of, I came into my first experience with trauma when I was 5 years old. I was
mm,
sexually abused. And then the interactions with my mom and I over the course, even up until this point, has always been traumatic. I never had that nurturing, loving, supportive version of my mom. I've always got the harsh, this is the world, this is how you need to deal with it, this is how you cope with it. And so it really dealing with sexual abuse, dealing with physical and emotional abuse and mental abuse, it really put me in a dark space for my entire childhood. I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have people I could talk to. I didn't have people I can go to for support. And I oftentimes felt alone and isolated in my suffering. It wasn't until I had Aiden. And when you meet Aiden, he's just full of love. That's the boy. That's who he is. That's what he does. He loves. I tell people, one, Aiden is my rainbow baby. Jaden's my miracle baby. So I had Aiden after having a miscarriage. But when he was born, he was just this loving child. He just looked at you with bright eyes, like he was just so hopeful. So Aiden taught me what love was. And Jaden was like my fighter. I had to fight to get him into this world. And then I had to fight for him to survive and me to survive because we both almost lost our lives during the birthing process and then shortly after. I had fluid in my lungs and an enlarged heart. So I found the fighter in me through my youngest, and I found the love in me through my oldest. So once I became a mother, I realized that the things that I experienced as a child wasn't normal. And it wasn't something that I wanted other women to suffer through if they chose to move past it. And so, like I tell my kids, my purpose as your mother is to create a childhood for you that you don't have to spend your adulthood healing from. And that's how I started the From Trauma to Triumph program originally, was through that avenue. But like you said, with me doing empowerment work, working specifically with female entrepreneurs, reaching out, having amazing conversations with people like you and other women who have their own
Mhm.
stories to tell, I realized that many of us are still dealing with trauma in the entrepreneur space, and we don't know how to let go of our trauma and allow our business to thrive without it. And so that's when I started to remember, well, with prayer, of course, but
Mhm.
most importantly, with self-awareness and understanding, that's when I realized, okay, it's time for me to get back to why I started in the first place. And so that's how a little bit about my journey to shifting gears into the trauma space.
Wow, wow. This is such an inspirational story. And thank you for sharing that.
You're
I
so welcome.
my heart, with you, because a lot of women out there, Jasmine, they do go through trauma. They do go
Mhm.
through physical abuse. They do go through sexual abuse. They grew in an environment where there is no love or little love. They don't know, some people or some women, they don't know even how to love themselves
Right.
in that space. But when you dealing as a child, my goodness,
Mm.
as a child, Jasmine, you going through that abuse. And I know, mothers, you said, mother always say this is how is the world and this is the reality. Have you ever gone and spoke to your mom? Because I know that at that time, the space for you, my goodness, it must be very tough and challenging as well. So
Yeah.
tell a little bit about that.
So when it originally happened, my parents are ex-military. So they were in Korea. At the time, I was living with my great grandma, the first incident.
Mm,
So they wasn't really around, and I didn't know how to process it. And the environment that we were in at the time with my great grandma was very dysfunctional. So I had nobody to talk to. So I kind of just kept it inside for years. And then the next incident happened when I was living in Italy with a guy that went to our church. Interesting enough, I found out recently that he was actually on the Black Panther movie as an extra, which triggered me because I love that movie. So that was some more healing that I had to do throughout that process. But um, when that happened, I I knew, knowing what I know now and seeing when my children go through things, it was easy to tell something was wrong. but nobody said anything. So I kept silent. And it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I told my mom, these are the things that I have experienced. And I think the most heartbreaking thing for me was the fact that she thought I was lying about it. She didn't believe me. And it felt to me as though I was better off being silent and holding it in and coping with it the best way I knew how. And I did that for a couple of more years. I ended up getting married to somebody who was very narcissistic. Now we have a great co-parenting relationship, but the marriage wasn't the best. And I did it as a means to run from my family, run from my problems. And so when we got divorced and I got pregnant with my youngest, I came back to my mom. It was around, well, it was shortly after giving birth. So this had to be when I was like 26. My son was a toddler by then. I came back, I sat her, my mom, and my dad down, and I told them again, I said, these are my experiences. This is what I've experienced as a child. And this is why I raise my children differently. This is why I do the things that I do with them. You may not understand it, you may not like it, but there is purpose to my parenting. And then that's when I found out that my mom went through similar experiences as me. And so I had to make peace with the fact that she did not deal with her own trauma, so she couldn't even help me deal with mine.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God. This is what you saying is so, I'm not gonna say so familiar, but it's also, I know women personally, they go through it and they don't know. Their parents don't know. They don't know how to deal with it. And as you say, like you kept it for 18 years because you were afraid. You're afraid to go and speak to your mom because you knew the outcome. You knew what she would say to you. Besides that, your mom gone through the same way and she didn't know how to deal with it and then become a military. I know because military life is very tough
Oh my
as
gosh,
well.
yes.
It's very tough. That, oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, like women who listen to this, they're gonna think, I can relate to this. I can relate to Jasmyn. I can relate to her stories. So from when you were 7 until 18 years old, what was going on in your mind at the time?
I was angry. I would lash out. I would get in fights. I was in a very dark place. I felt alone.
Mm,
I felt unloved. I felt abandoned. There's been times in my childhood where I would attempt to, and again, this is not to promote suicide, but I did. I attempt suicide 3 times, and somehow I got on the brink of death and came back, and nobody even knew. I would go to school with slit wrists and a black jacket. Nobody knew. I was smiling, asking everybody else how they were doing while I was dying inside. I was hurt. I was hurt from the fact that there was no adult around to protect me. I was hurt in the sense that the people that I relied on for safety, for security, for love was not there for me. And I couldn't understand why. And I think for me, I'm glad I have boys because then I hated myself and I hated men. I hated boys. The only person I felt really close to was my brother because we're like twins. But everybody and my dad, I'm a daddy's girl. But everybody else I hated. And I used to tell myself, I don't want boys because I know I would never love them. After everything that happened, I would never be able to love a male child. And I got blessed with boys. And then I learned through them how easy it is to love. It's everybody says being a mom is hard. And yes, it has challenges, but looking at how much I've gone through and seeing how my sons have a vastly different mom, and we have
Mm,
conversations. I don't tell them the in-depth about my past just yet, but they
mm,
ask questions and I give them a little bit. I'll say, the mom that I grew up with, you guys don't have that as me as a mom. I've had it rough. I've had it hard, and I know you guys have your own experiences. And if you are going through something, I let them know, hey, let's talk about it. If you don't want to talk, let me know what I can do. If you want to go see a therapist, if you want to, talk to your dad, just let me know when you're going
mm,
through something. And I'm very hyper vigilant about that. Because I don't ever want my children to have that sense of darkness, that sense of I was evil. I would be honest and tell you I was evil. I wanted everybody in the world to suffer. And when you look at me now, you're like, this can't be the same person, because I'm always trying to help. I'm always trying to be supportive. But I was like, yep, this is it. I want the world to burn, and I don't care if I burn inside of it, because I didn't experience, it wasn't until I started having kids and I went to college and I started making friends that I realized love exists out there.
mm,
Sometimes the people that you surround yourself with or that you're close to aren't where you're going to get the most support, the most love. But
mm,
yeah, that's how I was as a child. And I know it's hard to imagine, but that's how I was even as in my early phases of being a mom.
mm.
I was hateful.
I think what you are experiencing, Jasmine, is a lot of women experience as well. And as
Mm-hmm.
always say, our stories always connect in some way. And I think at that time is the feelings that you are feeling inside you that reflects on the behavior. You think is like you are evil, but that is the feeling that you kept inside you for
Yes.
years without talking to someone, without consulting, someone, without just go, and without even someone show you love, reach out and just be gentle. And I know because I have experienced the same thing growing up as
Oh
well.
yeah.
You know that with the environment that I grew around, I grew with is very tough. It's tougher than the
Mm-hmm.
military. I'm telling you, it's tougher than the military. I'd rather be in the military than being in that kind of environment. But it affects our emotions so much, especially when it
Mm-hmm.
tells you that emotion, it doesn't matter. The feelings, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter. How you think, it doesn't matter how you do. And that is wrong,
It
because you
is.
said you didn't know what self love is. You started, your kids taught you the first love.
Yep.
At the time, before your kids, I'm going to go back before your kids, were the decision, or the feeling that you had has affected your decisions growing up in some way?
Absolutely. Um, I didn't, I didn't have a childhood.
Mm,
My childhood was spent trying to survive. And
mm,
my early childhood was spent on trying to survive. My teenage years were
mm,
spent on trying to escape. And so I look back at it and it's like it's a blur. Even when we used to have family discussions, and I'm estranged with
mm,
my mom now, but when we used to have family discussions and they would bring up certain vacations and things, for me, it wasn't the same experience. I wasn't connected. The only thing was in my mind was moving out, creating a family of my own so I don't have to deal with this, so I can find somebody to love me. That's why I got married early. That's why I had kids. Well, that's why I had Aiden early, was because I was so desperately trying to find that love. And although Aiden taught me what that love was, I still had to find it within myself in order to reciprocate at the love he was giving to me. And I'm truly blessed for my kids. I'm not going to tell them that because they already got a big kid, but I am truly blessed. Had I known what I knew back then, I can honestly say my life would be in a vastly different place. I wouldn't have caused so much pain on the men I've dated, because of course, being in that type of environment, it affects your relationships. I wouldn't have caused so much pain on my friends, my
Mm.
family, my loved ones. They wouldn't have to have had to suffer with me through everything that I was going through. So it did affect my decisions. I oftentimes found myself making the wrong decisions and having to learn from it,
Mm.
or being in the wrong sense of company. And I'm truly thankful for God's protection, because making some of the decisions that I've made out of pain,
Mm.
I shouldn't be here today. I should be long gone, laid up in a ditch somewhere. So I am truly grateful for my journey. I
Mm.
am grateful for my past. I'm appreciative for the experience that I've gained from it. And most importantly, I'm glad that I found myself during that process. And that's why I named my program From Trauma to Triumph, because many of us go through traumatic experiences and we stay there.
Mm.
We stay there. We allow it to affect every aspect of our lives, including our business. And it's not until sometimes it may take, you telling your story and shedding light on the other side of it. Sometimes it may take me sharing my story and being truthful and authentic about where I am, where I was, and what I did to shed light. But there is always triumph after trauma.
Always, always, absolutely.
Always.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely couldn't agree more, Jasmine. How did you start the journey of healing, of finding
Divorce.
yourself?
Um,
Oh, wow. Okay.
honestly, yeah, my divorce. My divorce
Mm.
was the first step, because, well, granted, he divorced me. I just still had to go through the process, but I didn't have anyone to truly be dependent on anymore.
Mm.
I didn't have that security. I didn't have that family dynamics anymore. So when I got divorced, surprisingly, June 19th, 2017 was when I got divorced. I had to start my journey of healing. And so from the time of my divorce, probably up until the first time I entered into a relationship, which was a year later, I
Mm.
had to heal my childhood wounds. The anger was the main thing that I had to deal with.
Mm.
And then the next year after that, I had to deal with the sexual trauma. And it was a hard year. I went abstinent for a year and a half so that I could reconnect with me as a woman, embrace what makes me unique, and love what makes me me. And so I did that. And then the next year, 2019, I learned how to be a better parent. I learned how to show up for my kids. I learned how to support my kids. And then 2020, I started shifting into, okay, what makes me happy? What is it that I find pleasure in? What is my purpose? And by 2021, that's when I started the journey of entrepreneurship. Now, I'm not going to say it's been easy. It has been hard. There's been highs, there's been lows, there's been ups and downs, days where I'm in bed crying and depressed, and other days I'm excited and ready to take on the world. But I think for me, most importantly, that journey starting in 2017 is the reason why I'm here today, being able to share my story with someone that I've never met in person in the UK that has a very similar story to my own. And that's what I'm appreciative. And I'm going to say grateful, 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 because I have to show gratitude for how far I've came in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, we appreciative too that you're still here.
Me too. And I'm glad. We talked a little bit on my platform, and I know I was tears. I cried the whole time you were speaking, but it was so healing for me in and of itself.
Mm.
It was.
But that I think that's what is connects us as women, that our
Mm-hmm.
stories is similar. Maybe the environment is different. Maybe the upgrade, we growing up is different. But we've got similarities in our stories, and that's
Yes.
that's what really connects us, and that's beautiful. Why I see absolutely beautiful, and for you to share that is thank you. Thank you for sharing that. But I know when women gonna listen to this later on, they're gonna think, Jasmyn, I know your journey. It's quite inspirational,
Mm-hmm.
quite long one as well, and challenging. But as a person who's going through trauma, because I know a lot of women and young girls there out there, especially now, in this DNA age, they do go through trauma and they keep it quiet inside them, whether they're like embarrassed to share it, afraid, they're scared to share it, or they feel guilty to share it. Um, they will say it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. So for you, was it that the same concept at the time? I know you said, divorce is the first step. How did you discover the self-love? How did you start working on the self-love? And I think it's before the self-love is what I think personally is awareness. How did you come?
Mm-hmm.
How did you come to know that what you have gone through in your childhood is a trauma that is affected your whole teenage year, like whole childhood and teenage year and growing up? Because at the moment people are going through trauma, but they're not
Yes.
aware of it.
I was always aware. I just didn't want to deal with it.
Mm.
And I have to be honest about that.
Is it
I've always
denial?
knew. I
Denial?
it wasn't in denial. It was just I didn't want to deal with it. It
Mm.
it was too much for me to unravel. Too much. So even at 5, I'm autistic and I have a different sense of awareness of how the world works and operates. So I've always been, and I'm starting to see certain spiritual attributes in my oldest son because he's very sensitive to energy like I am. So I've
Mm.
always knew, okay, this is something's wrong here and it needs to be addressed.
Mm.
As a child, and like from 5 to maybe 10 or 11, I didn't have the tools and nobody around me taught me how to deal with trauma because no one around me was dealing with their trauma. It was being swept under the rug. We wouldn't have conversations about it. We had to be the perfect family. We had to look a certain way and act a certain way. So it was not properly addressed. From the time I was 12 to, I would say, even in my early 20s, I was aware that it was wrong. Something was wrong. I was aware that I was going through a lot and I was not properly dealing with it. Even my parents would tell me this, and I would look at them like, how dare you? You're not practicing what you preach, so why would I listen to you? But I knew that I needed help. I just didn't want to unravel all of that because that was anger, that was hatred, that was feelings of unlove, that was low self-esteem, that was
Mm.
suicidal thoughts. I wasn't ready to unpack that. And the pivotal point, I say divorce, and particularly me being a single mom and having to have my sons full time and support them. I never forget. It was either it was probably Jaden, because Jaden used to have an attitude problem. One of them did something. I had a long day at work. I was exhausted. I was tired. I still had schoolwork. I was ready to go to sleep. I asked one of them to do something. And of course, at the time, they're like 3 and 5. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this, but I have to be honest. I asked one of them to do something. They said something smart. I snapped. And it wasn't until I saw Aiden's face. And Aiden had this exact, and I'm getting emotional about it because it hurt. It still hurts. Aiden had the exact same expression on his face that I used to have on my face as a child when my mom used to yell at me. I didn't even know what I was dealing with internally. And when I saw that expression, I didn't see my son, I saw myself. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be like my mom. I'm tired of being angry. And I'm tired of lashing out at everybody else who doesn't deserve it. I need to do something about it. And that's when I started researching. I started studying. I got more into my spirituality. I'm mostly Native American. So I really started diving deep into my roots and my ancestries and um, mindfulness and grounding and healing is things that I used to do as a child that I just strayed away from because to my mom, who's a pastor, and very Christian oriented, those things were of the devil. So I would get in trouble for just walking outside barefooted in the grass or just sitting and meditate, but I would see my dad meditate. So I would emulate that. So it caused so many confusions as a child, but I knew that's what I needed to get back to. And once I started that mindfulness journey, it opened up the avenue for me to become more self-aware because I was consciously taking notes of what I was doing and how I was reacting to certain situations. And I was subconsciously making those changes. And so that's how I got into first the space of self-awareness. And then after self-awareness and mindfulness came taking action. So I would journal. I would write down my feelings. I would burn it. I would reach out to the people that I've hurt if I was still in contact with them, and I would apologize. Even I reached out and I apologized to my parents for being an angry child, for expressing my emotions in the way that I did. And I know that it caused them stress.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize. And I still, to this day, I apologize to my children. If I hurt their feelings, if I do something that makes them feel uncomfortable or anything, we have conversations. And I'm not one who's afraid to apologize. So acknowledge self-awareness is first. Being aware that there is healing that needs to be taking place. Acknowledging that you are not okay and it is okay not to be okay. Then taking actionable steps to change. Because it really doesn't matter what you've gone through. You can always come out of it.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you're sharing some dimes today, Jasmine. I mean, women out there gonna say like, what?
Yeah, and this is stuff I've
Nobody
never
told us
shared.
that before. Nobody told us, these tips and this advice and this, information because they're not access to it. And until today, some people they do go through trauma. I remember when I went through trauma. Like until now, going to see a counselor or a therapist, it's like it's a no-no. They see it as like something forbidden in our family, in our culture. And that's what makes the situation worse. If you are people going through trauma, it is very important for them to reach out. And now with a lot of help, there is a lot of help out there. Even you said you research, you Google. Sometimes that's even not even enough. You can go and speak to someone in school. You can go and speak to your friend. You can go and speak to someone who's expert on things. So I absolutely couldn't agree with you more, Jasmine. So how did you start the journey of self-love?
Being single, staying single. That started it. I got to a point where I wasn't being fulfilled in the relationships that I found myself in. I'm a giver by nature. Um, and that's some of the things that I talk about in my program and in my business is the different attributes that we have as entrepreneurs and how it stems from our traumatic experiences. So one thing that I have is a giving spirit, and it's not because I'm just that way. I have learned how to be a giver because at some point in time, I was not receiving what it was that I need. I was also a people pleaser. Why? Because I looked for validation in everybody else that I wasn't getting within myself. And so going back to what we talked about that sense of awareness, once you're aware, you cannot become unaware. So every time I tried to push it or it got too hard to deal with and I tried to run, I would run into another situation that reminded me of the situation I was just running out of. And each time it got worse and worse and worse. So each relationship ended up getting worse and worse and worse. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I just need to be single. I need to be the best mom that I can. I need to be the best Jasmyn that I can. And I need to work on me because I got some stuff I need to deal with. I got tired of attracting the same friends, the same relationships, the same people, the same situations, and it was getting me nowhere. And I had a mentor that told me, I love her to death. She said, if you keep attracting the same type of energy, it's not them, it's you. And so that's what it took for me. It took me to stop dating, took me to stop showing up for other people. Of course, my kids are an extension of me, and I cannot help but to be there for them. But it took me taking a step back and disconnecting from everything and everybody and sitting with the ugliness that is myself. And I had to date myself. I had to sit down, figure out the things that I liked about me. I had to sit down and figure out the things that I hated about me. I had to sit down and think about the things that I needed to improve on and the things I needed to let go. So I ended up being single for 3 years after the relationship I was in after my marriage. And I spent that time, I mean, I would talk to people, of course, guys and things like that. But the moment I saw, okay, that's a red flag. You're projecting what it is that I'm currently dealing with internally. I can't deal with you. It's triggering. Let me go heal some more. Once I got to that place, then the healing journey started to get a little bit easier. But that dark night of the soul moment is what a lot of people are afraid of, because sometimes when we go through trauma, our brain naturally suppresses that trauma or traumatic experience as a way for us to survive it. And once the brain believes that we are in a safer space, then it unlocks that memory. And then you don't even realize that that has happened to you, nor is it affecting you. But once that memory is unlocked, it's like, okay, all those feelings come rushing back in. All those emotions coming back in. The thoughts, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, all come rushing back in. And you have to deal with that guilt. You have to deal with that shame, that embarrassment, that disappointment. You have to deal with all of that in order to move forward. So that's what really helped me in my journey. And I have to be honest, I was supported by people I would have never thought would help me. They literally came into my life specifically to help me get over something I was struggling with. And then they left, and then the next person came in. And that's what that journey was about for me, was that dark night of the soul, sitting in it, dealing with it, and then making the conscientious decision that I will never go back to that. I would never be that person again. I would never project on people that pain. And in actuality, my this is, I guess, my personal mission statement is to be a reflection of what people want to be and want to become. So you said confidence earlier, is because I'm still working on confidence. So if you see me as confident, it's because you're confident yourself. And that's what I want to show up as in the world now, is as a reflection of all the beautiful souls that I encounter and come across.
Wow. Wow. Hardly saying anything after what you say because it's just such a, oh my God, it's inspirational. And your words really open a lot of eyes. It opened a lot of doors for women. And personally, I learned something today about myself. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So what advice would you give to women who are currently going through a trauma and they want to break through? They don't know how. So as a person who walked the walk and walked the journey, what you would say to this woman? What advice could you say to this woman?
The first thing I would say, because this is the first thing that came to mind, is that if you are a person who feels like you always have to be strong, you always have to show up, you always have to feel like you're well put together, that is a limited belief that you have. You aren't strong. Your trauma is forcing you to show up in a way that you know is not truly authentic. Another thing that I don't, if you constantly have people in your life that are telling you, hey, don't give up, you'll get through this. Cut those people out of your life as you're going through your traumatic experiences and you're dealing with it, because that's not encouragement, that's hindrance. You need people that can actually sit there and soak with you, that are like, hey, this sucks. We need to deal with it. We need to address it. Yeah, you're going to get through it, but you're not getting through it right now. So let's figure out a way to actually be okay in these moments. And most importantly, I would say this: if you feel like the walls are caving in on you, you're sitting in a dark place, you go to work, you go to school, you go out into your community, and you're just smiling on the outside and dying on the inside, this is confirmation that you need help. You need to seek help, because that right there was right at the pivotal point before I gave up and was willing to lose it all. So if you're at that point, please reach out for help. Please reach out for support. Know that you are loved by people you don't even know. Know that you are encouraged by people you haven't even seen. And know that there are people rooting just for you to get out of your situation, because at some point in time, you're going to be on the other side of this microphone, sharing your experiences and inspiring somebody else to do the same thing you did. So that's the advice that I have.
Amazing advice. Amazing advice. And I hope women who will listen to this or will listen to this later on, they will take this advice, and they implement this advice, even if it's hard. As long as you try, you do that first step, the rest will become easy. The rest will become easy. So if people want to connect with you, Jasmyn, and want to reach out and share their stories and you know, just get information from you and get coached by you, where would they find you?
Yes. So my Instagram is from a trauma, the number 2 triumph. You can find me on Instagram there. You can find me on Facebook. My Facebook is Jasmyn, Jasmyn space camp. You can search me there. My business is Jay's Intuitive Life Coaching and Empowered Healing. If you're looking for coaching, if you're looking for even advice, if you're looking for content that is centered around trauma, how to overcome it, different strategies and exercises you can use and techniques, you can find me on social media. You can reach out to me. I'm a very friendly person. I'm a very busy person, but I try to connect when I can. So if you message me and I don't respond, please know I will get back to you. I'm not going to ignore you. If you need help, if you need coaching, if you need support, because that's what it takes. I do have a Facebook group that supports female entrepreneurs. I'm currently, like I said, rebranding all of my courses to address these issues that we as women, we as entrepreneurs have when it comes to our traumas and allowing our traumas to take over our life. Oh, and also, if you want fun, quirky, semi-professional videos, to just get a more sense about my personality and my lifestyle, you can find me on TikTok too. I do dances, I do little quirky stuff, and I also provide, you know, advice and guidance there as well. And my TikTok is from trauma, the number 2 triumph. So thank you so much, Hawaida. I love talking to you. I just naturally love talking to you. You're really a beacon of light, and I just feel like at home in any space that you're in. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. I really opened up. I feel like I need a good cry now because I wasn't in a space to be able to open up before, not
Yeah.
on this caliber. It wasn't until you came on my platform and you were just so comfortable. I was like, okay, I need to make this shift. And so I just want to thank you for being who you are, being so powerful, being so encouraging and so enlightening. And thank you for this opportunity.
You most welcome. You're most welcome. You're such an inspiration, and you really inspire me, and you're so powerful, powerful, and confident. So thank you for accepting to be on my podcast. Thank you very much for connecting with me. And I'm sure people who's gonna listen, women who's gonna listen to your story today, they can relate and they can connect. And please, anyone who listen to Jasmyn's story and they really want to connect with her, please, I will leave all her social media contact, website, everything in the description. Go and message her. Go and message her. And, she's an absolutely incredible person. So until I see you
Thank
next
you.
time, bye bye.
Yeah.